our April Purple Chair Chat. My name is Evelyn and my pronouns are she, hers. I'm an education and prevention specialist at Jana's campaign. And this Purple Chair Chat will be focusing on April being Sexual Assault Awareness Month. We're going to be talking about the history of Sexual Assault Awareness Month, how it's glorified and portrayed in movies and TV today, as well as sexual harassment online. Side note, I feel like April is going super quickly. Is it going just like in a second for anybody else? But our Purple Chair Chats are live conversations instilling the knowledge, skills, and values necessary to prevent gender and relationship violence. We use these discussions to raise awareness, engage bystanders, promote healthy and respectful relationships, as well as encouraging the development of new social norms. Before we start today, I do want to mention I'll be discussing some difficult topics regarding gender and relationship violence that might be triggering for some, especially when I'm talking about sexual assault. So please do whatever you need to take care of yourself. And if you are in need of resources or services but do not know who your local advocates are, reach out to us. We'll do our best to put you in contact with those right people. And as always, resources will be posted in the comment section of this live as well. And there are multiple resources used in today's Purple Chair Chat content that we always want to cite and give credit where credit is due. So they include the National Sexual Violence Resource Center, ChildNet, and Pew Research Center. So let's begin with the history of Sexual Assault Awareness Month. The actual recognition of Sexual Assault Awareness Month began 21 years ago in 2001, but its history actually goes much further back. The legacy of Sexual Assault Awareness Month was led by Black women and women of color dating all the way back to the 1860s. So after the Civil War in 1866, there was a shootout between white Memphis police officers and Black Union soldiers. After this, with the help of the police force, white residents went through Black neighborhoods and assaulted, murdered, and sexually assaulted Black civilians and soldiers. This later became known as the Memphis Massacre. Now, after this occurred, 5 Black women who survived the massacre testified in a congressional investigation. These sexual violence testimonies were the first to be part of a U.S. court trial. Then, later in 1971, the first rape crisis center was built in the San Francisco area, and it was called the Bay Area Women Against Rape. After this was created, 400 centers were then created and started popping up around the entire U.S. within the next 5 years. And the Pennsylvania Coalition Against Rape was the first state coalition to form in 1975. So at this time, many other national organizations were formed as well, and along with them came marches and events such as the Women's Equal Rights Parades. In 1994, the Violence Against Women Act, or VAWA, as it's known, was passed by President Bill Clinton. This act provided funding for the investigations and prosecutions of violent crimes against women. And this was really the first time in U.S. history that gender-based violence was not only seen as a personal issue, but it was also being seen as a legal issue as well. The National Sexual Violence Resource Center was created in 2000, and a year later, April was first recognized as Sexual Assault Awareness Month. 8 years later, President Barack Obama officially declared April as Sexual Assault Awareness Month. So let's move into talking about sexual assault in movies and TV. Society continues to normalize the objectification of women and sort of glamorize sexual violence in modern television and film. Plots hinge on drama, and screenwriters often use sexual abuse as a tool to make a storyline more interesting. But it's time for all characters to stop playing victims of abuse at the expense of entertainment or the expense of high ratings. Popular shows on Netflix, Hulu, HBO, all of those streaming platforms have played their part in romanticizing sexual assault and violence for a really long time. In episode 1 of Gossip Girl, Chuck Bass attempts to rape one of the youngest characters on the show, Jenny Humphrey. And then throughout the series, as it continues, Chuck takes advantage of his power and money to objectify women, paralleling the very real case of Harvey Weinstein. Damon Salvatore constantly compels women to do whatever he wants and then kills them when they're no longer useful or they're no longer of service to him on the show The Vampire Diaries. and both Khal Drogo and Ramsay Bolton rape and abuse their wives on Game of Thrones. Now, throughout the show, Game of Thrones actually features over 50 rapes. And when we hear that number, 50 rapes, the frequent abuse that's seen in that show, you would think that these characters would be the villains, right? Well, that's actually not the case. They're people that the audience ends up kind of idealizing and admiring as the series progresses, and their character development and their redemption arcs kind of rely on their past of abusing women. Glamorizing sexual violence in the media has resulted in normalizing it for young viewers. And, the shows I just talked about, The Vampire Diaries, Gossip Girl, Game of Thrones, they aren't small shows that, no one's watching. These are being viewed by millions and millions of people. So experiencing sexual assault can be even a defining aspect for a victim in television, making cold characters appear more human because of the assault that they have endured. Characters that are sexual abusers are often rewarded by getting the girl or overcoming their challenges that they're facing in different television and film. This depicts sexual violence as acceptable and almost attractive behavior both on and off screen. And research indicates that constantly watching abusers in the media instills the idea that sexual assault is normal. A recent report, in fact, examined how common depictions of domestic abuse and sexualized young women in the media impact audiences. So the study found that media portrayals of sexual assault and rape have been shown to increase victim blaming and influence the way women, men, the general public, police, the criminal justice system, and even how juries perceive a victim. The media has also constructed a social image of what a victim of sexual violence should look like. Nearly all victims of sexual abuse in television and film are innocent, wealthy, or middle-class white female characters. This image of the normal victim of sexual assault created by the media makes victims of other races, other genders, other sexualities, socioeconomic backgrounds appear less important. In fact, one study says the media has stereotyped black women as sexual aggressors, Asian women as overly sexually submissive, and white women from lower social classes as deserving of sexual exploitation. Meanwhile, male and LGBTQ+ victims of sexual assault are almost left completely out of the picture. The exclusive image of the innocent white female victim invalidates the reality that victims of sexual assault come from all races and all backgrounds. When we talk about sexual assault or sexual harassment online sexual abuse can be any type of sexual harassment, exploitation, or abuse that takes place through our screens. And there are many forms of this, but just to name a few, it could be sending someone hateful or unwelcome comments based on sex, sending unwanted requests to partners or strangers to send inappropriate photos or videos, sharing private images or videos without the consent of everyone involved, which is highly illegal, and sharing explicit content in spaces where everyone has not consented to view it, like in Zoom meetings or a professional email chain or text message or any other inappropriate place. Just because these forms of sexual abuse take place behind a screen doesn't make the impact that they have on the victim any less real. A Pew Research survey of more than 10,000 people concluded that the percentage of women who say they've experienced online sexual harassment has doubled since 2017, from 8% to 16%. And the share of men experiencing online sexual harassment has remained about the same as it has in years past. But we always come to the question that we ask ourselves of what can we do, right? What can we do to help with sexual assault awareness and prevention? The first thing is to educate yourself about sexual assault, and this is one that we talk about very frequently, especially on these Purple Chair Chats, but sexual assault impacts the lives of both men, women, non-binary folks, and the resulting trauma often goes far beyond the initial event itself. We know that people who experience sexual assault are more likely to experience PTSD, depression, anxiety, drug and alcohol addictions, and overall diminished quality of life. yourself. But you can help raise national awareness of sexual violence simply by educating yourself, educating your family, educating those who surround you. And you know, if you are watching this Purple Chair Chat, you're already educating yourself, which is fantastic. And there's still so much more information out there on this topic than just what I've been sharing here today. There are several national organizations that provide information and resources on sexual violence. Two of the leading organizations are RAINN, which is the largest anti-sexual violence organization in the United States. They operate the National Sexual Assault Hotline 24/7, and they also offer online support, resources, and information. Again, they'll be linked in the comment section of this live, as well as the NSVRC, or the National Sexual Violence Resource Center. They create and they share resources to help prevent and respond to sexual violence, not only in the United States, but around the globe as well. They're the ones who coordinate Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and they also operate an extensive online resource library, so definitely check them out as well. Another thing you can do is use social media. So connect with the cause and share it on social media to help increase awareness among those who are in your personal network. We at Jana's campaign post a lot during this month about different sexual assault statistics or important information, so you can always check those out, share them to your own feed, get the conversation started that way. And the organizations I mentioned before, like RAINN and the NSVRC, also have a huge media presence, so always connect with them as well. And then finally, learn how to best help those who experience sexual assault, because it can be difficult to know how to reach out to a loved one or just be there for someone who has experienced something as horrible and something as traumatic as sexual assault. But there are always things that you can do to support. You can lend a non-judgmental ear, because many people just want to be heard. They don't necessarily need advice or need comments about it. Also be patient and be considerate. Don't try to force your friend or loved one into seeking support or taking action if they're not quite ready for it yet. But if they are ready, if that person does plan to seek support or medical attention, offer to be there. As simple as it might seem, your presence alone can make a significant difference. And if someone you know is sexually assaulted, your reaction can have a huge impact on their recovery from the trauma. So don't question what they were wearing or why they weren't able to stop the assault. One of the most important things you can say to a survivor is simply, "I believe you." So, in wrapping up for today, as always, thank you for joining us, especially for this month's Sexual Assault Awareness Purple Chair Chat for April. We love being able to have live conversations, instilling knowledge, skills, and values necessary to prevent gender and relationship violence. We hope you were able to learn something today that maybe you didn't already know. And again, all of the resources or services will be linked below. If you do not know who your local advocates are, reach out to us and we'll put you in contact with those right people. Thanks again, everyone, and we will see you next month. Bye.